Endometriosis is a long-term condition which can affect women of any age and have a significant impact on their lives.
Yeah, 1 in 10 women suffer with the condition. 58% of them had to go to their doctor more than 10 times to receive a diagnosis.
Someone who knows all too well about endometriosis is Dr. Raj Arora, who suffers from the condition herself. She's here to tell us what signs and symptoms to look out for, as well as how to talk to your GP. Good morning, Dr. Raj.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
So tell us a little bit, what is endometriosis, first of all?
OK, so endometriosis is a chronic condition. It's an inflammatory condition. And it basically is where tissue, which is similar, so it's not the same tissue, but similar tissue to the womb lining, grows outside of the uterus in places it shouldn't, so on organs it shouldn't. So, for example, it might grow on your fallopian tube, so your ovaries, it might grow on your bladder, your bowels, and even outside the pelvic cavity, it might grow on your lungs rarely as well. So it's in areas it shouldn't be. And this then results in the tissue behaving like the tissue in the womb lining would. So, for example, if you're having a period, it will also bleed. But where you're having a period, the lining sheds and you get rid of that blood and all the tissue when you're having a period. In endometriosis, in the areas where you're bleeding, of course, there's nowhere for that tissue to escape to. So you end up with this chronic inflammation, scarring, adhesions forming, and adhesions like fibrous, thick scar tissue. And this is predominantly where you get the pain and the organ dysfunction from the endometriosis.
I had no idea it could grow on your lungs, though, as well. No idea at all. And so what should we be doing?
Well, firstly, I think raising awareness is important. So endometriosis, like Ben said, 1 in 10 women and those assigned female at birth will suffer from it. That's 1.5 million women in the UK, 176 million people globally. So it's common. And I think we need to think about how long it's taking for a diagnosis, up to 8 years, 9 years to get a diagnosis, and also the impact on fertility, etc. So what we should be doing is raising awareness, understanding the signs and symptoms, and really taking it from there.
Dr. Raj, what causes it? Is there anything specific?
So there's no known cause per se when it comes to endometriosis. There are some theories, and I'm happy to say that I know there's lots of really good research taking place right now, which hopefully will help us understand the causes a bit better. Ideas of genetics, immune system involvement, these kind of things we're thinking have an impact on the cause. Also, there's a sort of relationship with estrogen. Again, not very well understood, but the idea of you've got more estrogen, you've got more, impact and more growth of the endometrial tissue. However, that's a bit complex because you can still have it even in the absence of estrogen. So it's a bit of a complex, understanding around the causes.
And what's your experience? I mean, you must have a certain level of empathy with anybody who comes into your practice because you had it yourself.
Yeah, I still do have it. So I think with endometriosis, the thing to realise is that it's something that starts from your very first period and it continues into menopause. And with each period, if you're not on treatment, for example, you're going to have this retrograde menstruation, the inflammation, the scarring, and this is going to get worse and worse, giving you more symptoms. So it might then, stick down your ovary because of the scarring. It might affect your bowels, your bladder. So it can become progressively worse over the years. My own experience with it was that, as you do, you're told you've got a painful period, just get on with it, And I think this normalisation and stigmatisation of periods, painful periods, is still there, and there's a big gender gap as well. So I think we know from, research and studies that it takes a lot longer for women to be heard about their pain and painful periods than their male counterparts if they've got, a pain issue. So I think that's the first thing, and I think I was no different. So I started with painful periods. Obviously, I'm also from an Indian background, so we don't really talk culturally about this kind of stuff at home. It's not normal to say, oh, I've got a period. It's kind of like, get on with it. So from all I can remember from my first period onwards, I was just taking lots of anti-inflammatories, heat patches, debilitating impact, in bed, missing school, missing days off work, and it still wasn't really touching it. So for me, it was important to see my GP and to finally push for that diagnosis.
But 11 years?
Yeah.
It took you 11 years to finally get that diagnosis?
It did, yeah.
I mean, that's extraordinary.
Yeah, Ben, I think there is some... I can take some responsibility for that as well. As a junior doctor, when you're young, you just think, well, it's a painful period, you get on with it. It's when it progresses and you start to get more pain and more sort of impact. So for me, it was when I wanted to have children. I was like, my cycles were everywhere. I was lucky because I caught it just in time. I had my scan and they found a cyst on the ovary, which is quite common with endometriosis. It's called a chocolate cyst. And this luckily for me, it went away by itself, and they found that I had some scarring there. Luckily, had not impacted my fertility. I have 2 gorgeous children, so I'm really lucky. But that's why I'm raising awareness. I feel like it's important to get that diagnosis early, so that you do have the choice. You might not want to have children, you might want to have children, but that should be your decision, an informed decision that you make early on.
So how do we do that? Like, it took you 11 years.
Yeah.
How do you approach your GP and go, this is happening, I need some help?
Yeah, great. So some tips for that. Number one, first of all, book your appointment with the GP. We all know it's hard to see your GP, so I'm not going to argue that. But I think if your appointment's in 3 weeks' time, make use of the time that you have leading up to the appointment. Try all your anti-inflammatories, your heat patches if they're not working. Keep a diary of how much medication you're taking, what's happening when your period's coming on. With endometriosis, pain can be outside your period as well. It just intensifies during the period. So ensure you're making a diary of that, you're keeping notes of it. And then if you're still stuck, there's menstrual health helplines now. The Endometriosis Foundation, for which I'm a very proud ambassador, has launched a menstrual health helpline. So if you can't get hold of your GP, you can talk to a nurse online. And then when you speak to your GP, bring all this stuff to the table, work together with your GP to say, look, I think it could be endometriosis, and that in itself will cut down the time it takes to get diagnosed.
And if you do get that diagnosis, there are treatments, there are medications that you can take to help?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no cure for endometriosis at the moment, but I'm sure research will help us to work on that. But there are treatments, whether it's pain treatment, whether it's hormone management treatments, there's different types you can have. And in some cases, if it's severe, you'll have to go in to have surgery as well.
And so since having your diagnosis, obviously you've got your children, how do you cope with it? Is it relatively manageable?
It is now. I'm on the pills. So that helps to make me have lighter periods. It helps to protect me from having severe scarring. I mean, I've completed my family now, so I'm very lucky and happy with that. But I think it's not just about that. It's about your day-to-day work. It allows me to come in and do work and do things like this without having to worry about the pain. So I'm very lucky. But having said that, hormone treatments might not be suitable for everybody, so you have to see your doctor and decide what's the right treatment plan for you.
Thank
Dr.
you
Raj,
so much.
thank you.
Keep a diary, it's definitely helpful.
That's a good idea. Oh, hello. Thank you for visiting our This Morning YouTube channel. We upload tons of new content every single day. So hit the subscribe button, like all the videos, and don't miss out. We'll see you in the morning.